Okay, welcome back. I hope you all managed in the end to get to the front of the queue for coffee. So the next block we have now is the Innovation Challenge. So I think you'll all find this very interesting. Therefore, I'd like to welcome to the stage Alan Leroy, who is the Chief Engineer at EASA, and Tine Tomasic, who is the Group CTO and Director of Research and Development at Pipistrel.
Well, good morning, everyone, and I feel a bit younger. 3 years ago, we were here, so it's nice to be with you again today. Since last time, I've changed position. I'm a chief engineer, and I'm leading innovation in EASA, so that's really a challenge. And today, I will not keep you busy for too long, because we have a very, very interesting presentation from our guest later on in practice. What does it mean, innovation, in our landscape today? So very quickly, I want to provide you with a quick update on what do we do in the agency on research innovation. We are a regulator. You could say, why do they work on innovation and research? You will understand why. Whoops, sorry. That's a small problem here. Should be much bigger. Apologies for that. That's the problem of live presentation. I hope you can read. Apologies. This on my screen here, it's much better. So I will go very quickly through it. Our objectives in the agency, that's quite simple. We want really to support the Green Deal. This is our aspirational goal. Whatever we do, we have to have in mind this transformation. The society is transforming, and we have to accompany the change, and we have even to be ahead of the change. And that's what we try to do through our modest involvement in research and innovation in the agency. So that's the first point here. What is extremely important, working together with you, with industry, is to facilitate the market intake, to accelerate the time to market, lead time to approval, and so forth. And here, I have to say, in the past, we could have performed better. You came with a new concept, you came with a new product, and we had to start the machinery. And I think here we have someone who can testify. Sometimes it's a bit difficult. So we learned our lessons, and we've tried to put in place a new system, a new work frame in the agency to better work with you and with all stakeholders. You will see what we mean. And this is a bit what we have on the last bullet item here, to develop a common partnership agenda on research innovation with member states and industry. Well, this is a bit complicated because we have to accommodate the needs and the expectations from many, many stakeholders. But we do our best. So in a nutshell, what do we have? From the left to the right. On the left, you see we have the stakeholders. Basically, two kinds of stakeholders, member states and industry. So that's what you see on gray on the left-hand side. The MAB research group, for instance, MAB is Member States Advisory Body, and then with the sub-stakeholder advisory body for industry. So on the left-hand side, the real life, let's say. On the right-hand side, the agency, in terms of what do we need to do? What do we need to develop as new competencies, for instance? And in the middle, our portfolio. So from the left to the right, basically two kinds of activities with you, industry and member states. So today, I will focus on the left-hand side. What do we do with industry? Very simply, because I know the question will come, how do we fund our business? And this is very sensitive, as you know. So the work with industry, on the left-hand side, what we call industry-funded innovation project, are fees and charge. We provide you a service in order to be better prepared with you to develop something new. On the right-hand side, we have the member states and institutional activities. And in the middle, what we call public-private partnership are extremely important. That's where we combine the two activities. And again, Tine, you can confirm, we are working with the GUs and with you to make it work. So clean aviation, CESAR 3, and also clean hydrogen in the future are typical PPP. We are involved extremely deeply to better work with you in the future. And this is funded either by fees and charge or by National Research Program or Horizon Europe program. Today, I'd like just to focus on one specific point, what we call pre-application services. That's, in a nutshell, what we've developed. Some of you are familiar with it. We have what we call IPC, TAC, and Pre-Application Program. That's what we name IPC, PAC, and TAC. PAC is new, Pre-Application Contract. This is an animal where you see here, if I have a laser, no. So we can develop special condition. We can develop mean of compliance and interpretative material. And that's fundamental. So in a nutshell, we have a contact from industry. We work on what we call eligibility through our Research Innovation Committee, which is quite a new animal into the landscape here. So step 1, eligibility assessment. Step 2, we endorse into our committee the request. Step 3, we negotiate with you a contract, fees on charge, sorry to mention it. And step 4, we validate the outcome of the work. I go very quickly through this because after we have live example with Tina. Alors, that's quite significant to us. CESAR Clean Aviation. I would like to insist, here it is fundamental for the future. Both GUs, we have to work with you and with the GUs to prepare the future. Clean aviation in particular. What do we do? Just to insist on the last bullet here, advice on certifiability of different technologies and a new concept of operation. So in a nutshell, we need to be prepared with you for any disruptive CONOPS or product. Well, I just wanted to show what we do with member states. This is much closer to the EASA and to our safety strategic objective and to what we need to do to develop our competencies to address direct safety concerns. Typical example, sorry, it's a bit, I hope you can read, lessons learned from a recent accident incident for contribution agreement called 2. And we have, for instance, here, all kind of follow-up recommendations from AIRBs, follow-up recommendation from member state and so forth, how to better develop our technical specs, how to better work with you on future update of requirements. So that's what we say, implement strategic EPAS actions and contribute to our competency management knowledge development. Well, very important. I wanted to have a few words about this one here. Our scientific committee. This is a new animal, which is now 2 years old. We developed it during the COVID phase, all virtual. That was really an experiment, but we have been able to recruit, if I may say, 11 scientists from all over Europe, working directly with us in this committee to provide advice as independent academic, scientific advice outside of your constraints and our constraints as well. So neutral, scientific, academic recommendations. And to have a quick win, we started to work with them on AI, of course, typical topic for us at the moment, and on extreme weather. We could speak about extreme weather for hours, but from a safety perspective, from a design safety perspective. And also, we are putting in place a PhD scheme, but that's something we will hear about next year. So I just wanted to have a few more words here before leaving the floor to Tina. I didn't want to use too much time of your presentation, because now what I would like to insist upon here into this presentation is we have to work with you on approaching new concepts, new CONOPS. A couple of years ago, CONOPS, concept of operation, was not really a problem. Today, whatever I get, whatever we receive, the CONOPS is the entry point. What do you want to operate? How do you want to operate? Under which conditions? And you realize that the CONOPS is becoming today the driver for our design requirements. So before talking design, we have to talk about how, what, and why. And it looks simple, but in fact, for us, from design philosophy, it is a bit disruptive. And we had many discussions with industry on new applications where we started to talk about the product, about the design, but with no clear visibility on how will this be operated. And when we tried to reconnect the dots, sometimes it was a bit difficult. So our problem then is to adapt our regulatory framework is to make it fit for purpose. And the key words underlying is safety objective. So the ConOps, the new disruptive technology, how to operate something within our pre-application services, within our IPCs and so forth, we try with you to make, could I say, the landscape ready for certification, and market intake will be facilitated. So I don't want to keep you busy for too long. I just wanted to set up the scene. The pre-application service is available today. We work with you. We are quite happy. And now I leave the floor to Tina for a real demonstration on what does it mean, live innovation in small aviation industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Alain. Thank you for the clicker. You would not believe how comfortable these chairs are. I just got settled in and now I have 10 more extra minutes between you and lunch. So imagine the position of power I am in. I thought about how to even begin the story of an innovation challenge. You know, when you speak about innovation and you kind of try to connect it to how we live our lives today, one thing emerges. We are all ever more impatient. We want things quickly, we want things now. So I thought as well I might serve you, even before the presentation, for the most impatient of you, the universal truth which applies to innovation. Ready? Today is the absolute best day of your entire lives to make it better than yesterday. The innovators in the podium and online will understand this. Innovation is not about overnight success. Innovation is a journey. First, a bit about the company I represent. Pipistrel is based in Slovenia and Italy, employs about 270 people, and belongs to the umbrella of Textron eAviation as of this year. It started 30 years ago as a result of a passionate founder and remained family-owned ever since. These are our EASA products, the Velis range, two-seaters designed for pilot training. We develop and manufacture electric engines for which we were able to obtain type certificates, and we have a four-seat aeroplane in the pipeline for certification. I think it's fair to say that Pipistrel has always been there to support the story of sustainable and decarbonized flight, one day at a time. And hopefully today I managed to uncover how we did all this and where we are aiming for the future. But innovation is always suspended between the past and the future. We have to live it today, and we have to crystal ball what's the next best step. So let's have a look at when things were actually done for the first time. It's sometimes worthy to look back first. 1910, the brave souls of aviation decided that self-regulation is the name of the game, the wild, wild west. They met, I don't know, in a bar maybe, and they compared notes and said, look, you should be doing what I'm doing because my aeroplane is not falling apart and yours is. That's how self-regulation came to be. The 20s and 30s paved the way of some more gentlemanly ways of figuring out organization when it comes to flying. And 1937 brought approved firms, not unlike approved organizations that we know of today. 1944 set the stage for terminology we all use today, namely type certification to enter our world. And concurrently, Europe started to issue type approvals, which were down the same notes. It was actually only 1968, about half of the decade after the bar discussions and self-regulation, that the first document with a type certificate title was awarded here in Europe. Why was this even necessary? I think now we owe it to ourselves to kind of throw out a definition. What is innovation? And there's many things you can read in the books, but today I just want to simplify it for all of us and say innovation is when you do something that was not done before. You do something for the first time. And let's leave it at that. So when was it when you did something for the first time? last time. Last time for the first time. First time for the last time. Think about it. This is the first ever awarded type certificate. It's in the title, 001, issued by another certification authority, but that is irrelevant. It was issued to a wild design, to a never-seen-before product, a three-seater. Not a two-seater, a three-seater. Clearly, a 50% increase in risk. So yes, type certification comes to mitigate for the ideas that might be too wild to be embraced by the general public. So this is the aeroplane. Doesn't look too wild from today's perspective, but it followed a certain process for the first time. You probably must be thinking like, oh my God, what is Tines saying here on stage? He's giving us a history lesson instead of talking about innovation. What is this? Bear with me, it gets much better. This is a statement from the founder and CEO and innovation manager, all in the same person, of that company, of that aeroplane, about his certification experience. Although the rules seem fairly basic and straightforward, obtaining a type certificate proved somewhat difficult. Huh? You notice? Almost 100 years ago. What was the process? This is actually from the National Archives of the United States of America. Articles A and B are what matters. Look at A. It says, a manufacturer that has previous experience of type, structure, materials, assembly, and workmanship is in the position to apply for an approved type certificate. So you have to be experienced to even approach the process. And what was the process? Well, look, we go now down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Some drawings, some descriptions of the power plant, description of the wings and structures, and a stress analysis with a signature of a responsible engineer. And this was for the first time ever. Like, who's the responsible engineer for aviation structure? Interesting, huh? But by concept, how far were these guys away from what we do today? Not that far, apparently. Almost 100 years ago. And then look at D&E. You have to send in your reports about how you did, and you actually have to ask for permission before you change your design from what you have showcased. Is this innovative or what? Let's go on. This is our story of, you probably have a total disconnect in your head, right? Why did we speak about 1927? But it'll all come back, you will see. History comes to chase us. This is our journey through electric flight. Started in 2007, flying a two-seat electric motor glider. And then if you follow the blue trajectory, this is about pushing the endurance, the aerodynamics side of the aeroplane design, the efficiency, if you wish. Only later, in 2014, the yellow line begins, which you could call the practical line. Today, it is crowned by actually delivering airplanes with a type certificate courtesy of EASA. And the green line is what you would call the more wild side of things, pushing the envelope, coming up with new technologies. And this is where we conduct research also through European co-finance projects, and hybrid-powered aircraft come out of those trajectories. So I hope you realize that we did not start yesterday. We started quite a while back, and we tried many different things so that today we can be in a position to cater electric flight to regular customers. So how did the type certification journey of the Velis Electro, which is the airplane that we ship today, has the EASA type certificate, how did it begin? It began with a technology demonstrator where we had the luxury of flying a Siemens electric engine. Because we did not really care about the engine, we care about other things. Previously, predating these products, we had motor gliders, we had competition aeroplanes. What was common to those is that they were spending more time connected to a charger, to a cable, than flying. And what's up? The project's name turned that around. It was the first electric plane that could fly longer than be connected to the charger. At the same time, we tried swapping off the batteries. It proved that people are lazy and they don't want to do it. Batteries are heavy, so we departed from that idea. And Alpha Electro was our product that we shipped to customers outside of the EASA regime. And this may be important, and this is something we would like to turn around in the future. The next step was certifying an engine. Why? Because the rules tells you if you want a certified aeroplane, you better show up with a certified engine. Well, that was then. It's not the same anymore. Part 23 and others here in Europe allow you to certify engines together with your airframe concepts, together with the aircraft. We did not have this luxury back then. So the result is utilizing what you could call a donor airframe. It's an aircraft we had certified before with the conventional powertrain and equipping it with an electric engine that was type certified separately. So a bunch of numbers for your reference up on the slides if you want to look up the exact properties and type certification data sheets. How did the certification look like? It was interesting, with one word. These are some snapshots. You see some people in orange suits, most likely test pilots. They like to dress up this way. It's a thing, you know. Batman is in black, test pilots are in orange. You have batteries, many batteries in fridges. I think in those years we bought more fridges than any other aviation companies to test batteries under low temperatures, some pumps, etc. Still today, when one speaks about certification of electric aircraft, one topic emerges as the prime topic of this discussion. And you guessed it, it's the battery. But it's not all about the battery. I think we have to ask ourselves, when we try to push something innovative to the market, why are we doing this? Why are we approaching a certification authority? Why are we engaging in this complication? What is the end result we are to achieve? And it's not the issuance of the type certificate paper. It's to give assurance, and it's to give the peace of mind, and it's to give guidance to our customers. We are doing this for our customers in the end. You would not believe how non-trivial it is for customers to figure out how to even use an innovative product. Because, you guessed it, it's new for them as well. So the certification effort ideally sets up the stage for all the topics that require discussion for a successful usage of the product on the market. And when it came to Velis Electro, this was far from just making sure the flying vehicle is safe. It's far from obtaining a structures assessment signed by an approved engineer, like in 1927. It came to questions around operations, maintenance, licensing, first responders. So when you will decide to push innovation through certification, please try to assess, because it will help yourself assess how long it will take of everything that your product brings by, everything that changes because of your innovative product. And going back to our timeline, I can comment that engineers, including myself, we are always too optimistic in what we can do in 1 year, and we always underestimate what can be done in a decade. This is how we are. So the claim that battery is not the only or the most important part, I'd like to reinforce with the dark side of aviation business as well. Things happen. These are images from 3 accidents, 1 unfortunately fatal, 2 totally survivable. None of them occurred because of a battery deficiency or even a battery malfunction. They all happened because of other contributing factor. And that was a wake-up call as well as a shake-up call. I think one of the interesting innovations coming out of the Velis Electro cert process is actually how to educate people on something that they have not encountered before. So just like in an airline, you have your emergency evacuation cards, which you probably didn't read last time you flew. Did you? You didn't, right? We have an emergency leaflet card that we are able to distribute not only to pilots, but also to people at airports, to first responders, fire brigades, and people who are interested. Because guess what? People are afraid of the unknown. So imagine you find yourself at an airport where somebody is flying a wild contraption. How do you gauge that they are actually doing it right or wrong? How can you comfort yourself? Well, maybe that's one of the ways. And the safety leaflet actually addresses the normal things, like how the product is used, but also the emergencies, as you might come to expect. And there's some golden nuggets in there as well. I hope you can see them here outlined with these ellipses. And the first one says, avoid charging if it's raining. Sounds like a very 2018 thing to say, right? But with the knowledge that was available during the certification, there were apprehensions in what happens if you charge in the rain. It turns out battery don't care. Chargers neither, but we have it there. So we owe it to ourselves to continuously communicate the most new things to our customers. One side innovation, because of the lessons learned, is also how do we take care of the people who come to rescue people in distress. And we have coordinated with an organization called CTIF that is in the business of training and publishing rescue cards for cars. If you have an accident on the road, firefighters will use CTIF cards to figure out where to cut to effectively extract you if you are in trouble, as well as not to hurt them. So here we have some symbology that aviation has never seen before, but every firefighter will recognize. Don't cut here. I think we are missing one important element. The video? Anyone? No? Maybe later on. Pushing on to certification. Aha, the video. Good. Can you pause this? Go back, please. You spoiled all the fun. So still elusive is how a battery test looks like. So I decided to show it to you. This was not shown in public. The silver box is one of the two batteries that fly in a Velis electrode. The black parts on the box are heat exchangers for the battery management system. The orange bit is where the high voltage cables connect the battery to the vehicle. The blue cables are only there for test equipment. They measure temperatures inside the box between the battery cells, as well as inject the failure. Essentially, they trigger the thermal runaway, i.e. the blow-up, the explosion of certain cells inside this box. This box contains 1,152 cells, battery cells. And you see there depicted on the right-hand side with orange which two cells, this is the agreed standard, which two cells will be blown up as part of this test, and the whole rest of the battery pack must tolerate it. What's interesting is that the test is being conducted at an overvoltage case, so the battery is intentionally overcharged. This is outside of the operational envelope of the battery typically, and it is also overheated, a few degrees centigrade beyond the maximum approved temperature. And this is what the big black hose on the left-hand side actually does. It circulates hot liquid so that the battery here is at approximately 60 degrees centigrade. You also see a contraption on your left-hand side, which looks like a metal pipe, and it is a metal pipe. It is the vent, or the chimney, and this is where the battery is designed to vent through. Of course, not all of the battery vents through that, but the gas is released by those two cells that are being triggered. And you also see the video equipped with signage of location 2, so such test is repeated on 6 locations in our case, 15 minutes apart from one another on the same box. And if all goes well, you will see another universal truth, and that is that electric and electronics are powered by white smoke. Because when things go bad, white smoke comes out. Can you please roll the video? and that's it. Thank you for your reaction. This is exactly what we would want for people to understand, that there are ways where technology can mitigate, can handle adverse effect. It comes by knowledge and experience, and the first test did not look like that. There was black smoke involved as well, not just white smoke. But trying hard enough and taking each next day, trying making it better than the previous one helps. So this is about the Velis Electro journey. Can you please continue the slides? Thank you. So MAHEPA was a successfully concluded European co-financed project that started in 2016. That's kind of before electric flight and VTOLs were even cool. You know. And the proposition was actually laid out on this exact slide to fly different aircraft equipped with the same building blocks, same electric motors, same power electronics, batteries, even fuel cells, to show that there is combinatorics possible in aviation. Because, let's face it, what will drive the business case is when the supply chain becomes available. It's not exactly the best that each and every one of us trying to push the envelope would have to make exotic tailored components, every component on the airplane for ourselves. At a certain point, we will start to rely on the supply chain. EASA was part of the project as well as a partner. And I still remember the day when we made the phone call, say, "Dear EASA, would you be interested in participating in this project?" And there was confusion in the room and on the telephone, because they were probably asked to do this for the first time. Yet again, we wanted to have regulatory involvement to steer the paths so that our designs would not end up being too wild and our certification experience not too difficult or too confusing. So what was MAHEPA to do and ultimately did? There were the value propositions, so you could say technologies, modularities, and architectures of the design. Today, this is known as distributed electric whatever. Yeah? Cooling systems, fuel cells, how they could be used to power airplanes. We were actually measuring emissions with what today you would call SAF fuels. At that time, it was called biofuels. You know, sometimes terminology needs a bit of marketing uplift to become attractive, and it matters. And we looked at what batteries could potentially do, of course, to propel hybrid electric aeroplane design further. MAHEPA is a realization, I think, by the industry at large, that innovation always happens to start up small so it can grow large. So 2 4-seat small airplanes trying to figure out how to fly bigger, better, faster, and larger airplanes. These are the direct components. So you could say, this is the software, this is the hardware, that come out of MAHEPA. Electric motors, what you see there on the left, is a 50-kilogram unit, 400 equivalent horsepower, sitting on a desk. We had power generation modules, fuel cell systems, adapted aircraft structures to co-host batteries and fuel. If you look carefully, the red part on the image left downstairs is the fuel tank, and on the right-hand side, there's the battery system. They coexist. What is more, we actually used fuel to cool the batteries. Poof. Yeah? And the associated systems. The project was a success. Pipistrel built what we consider our proof of concept for the Pantera hybrid airframe, and these are one of the first power runs. Much on the aeroplane is more complicated than it needs to be because we use this aircraft as a flying laboratory. Much how you saw the blue wires going in a battery, trying to figure out more than what you would measure separately. This is how this aircraft is set up. 7 different cooling systems, different ways of introducing failure modes in lieu of checking for certifiability and certification options. I'm hopeful that special condition E19 was also partially inspired by this work. And going from the 2016 slides, these are the 2020 slides. In midst of COVID, both aeroplanes actually took off. On the left, Pantera hybrid proof of concept. On the right, HY4, courtesy of a German company, H2Fly, both flying in Slovenia, showing that long-range, zero-emission flight actually stands a chance. Yeah? From theory to practice. Even the Latin proverb says, theory without practice is like a chariot with no wheels, and it's true. It's unbelievable how many wrong assumptions you can make because of fear, never having done it before, or just being plain wrong. This is also a slide that we proposed while MAHEPA was ongoing. And it was visions of how larger, these are about 20-seat airplanes, right? How they might look like if they used the exact same components I showed before from MAHEPA, growing from small airplanes to large, but using same motors, same batteries, also fuel cells, power electronics. The propellers on the wingtips here on this airplane in the front are actually the same propellers that you saw on the Pantera hybrid prototype. Same ones. Yeah? So I think it's fair to say that when you don't look at things from a traditional aerospace background, the amount of combinations that are available to aircraft designers today, because they are discussing electrified flight, are larger than any time before. Where does this take us? Just like our Velis Electro has a brother or a sister aeroplane, Velis Club, MAHEPA had a sister project, which was almost overlapping. It's called Unifier 19. It's more theoretical, but it takes the lessons learned from actual flight tests that we had the luxury to do under MAHEPA with EASA's help as well. What is Unifier all about? It's about moving people around. Today, we probably have about 200 people in the room. I'm not sure how many online, but how many of you in the room came from more than 200 kilometers away and did not fly here? So who drove here, took a train? Yeah, half of the room. Guys, this is a gathering of aviation experts and enthusiasts. If this was a gathering of automotive experts and enthusiasts, and you showed up on a horse, what do you think would happen? So Unifier looks at the unused assets we have in Europe today. It turns out commercial air transport happened, this is pre-COVID, 2019 timeframe, happened from 69 big airports, let's call them big airports. There is about 3,000 others, and these are the light blue ones, that are not used to fly people around today. They may be used for training, recreation, many other things, but not as transportation hubs. Can you see the opportunity? 70 versus 3,000? Like, why are they not being used today? This is what Unifier is set to answer. Turns out, there's many reasons, but the core one is there's no good machine to do this job. It's either too expensive, too noisy, too old, too something. So what would this machine need to look like? Before answering that, I also want to challenge you, if you are innovators, and claim that true innovators actually never consider failure, only the consequences of success. Because this is how they persevere. This is how we push on. This is what makes our blood circulate in our innovative bodies. Unifier 19 set up as a very academic exercise, and 2 universities were involved, Politecnico di Milano and TU Delft out in the Netherlands. We basically said, let's reset completely, and let's look at all the propulsion options, all the airframe options, everything, put it into one big melting pot, and see what comes out. Well, it turns out that a Coca-Cola powered aeroplane or a dummy bear coming aeroplane, this is not going to be viable, right? And only a year after the project had kicked off, a colleague of mine and myself went to Brussels and we said, Unifier 19 from now on will only consider hydrogen as a mode of propulsion. Hydrogen and batteries. Do you think European Commission was happy? No. They said, we gave you all this money to explore all these possibilities, and you are saying you are only focusing on hydrogen and batteries? No SAF? No hybrid electric? Nothing? And we said, yes, because we want to only consider the consequences of this success. This was the vision. Taking a mini liner aeroplane from a small airport, your mini terminal. The blue pills are there for show, and so are the pickup trucks, but you get the point. No long safety checks, no expensive sandwiches at the airports. Just fly from where you want to fly to wherever you want to fly. It's a grand vision, but why not? And this is where we stopped hearing that, no, this can be done, this is dumb, this is impossible. It turns out people love flying. What they hate is getting to and from and waiting at the airports. So what would the machine look like? And it's not this machine here. This is from the very beginnings of the project. It turns out there is no material to teach people how to build a from-scratch hydrogen hybrid electric powered plane. There's no textbooks, there's no courses, there's no universities. So we better start it from scratch. And together with university course materials, academic scientists and engineers from our our companies, we wrote code, tools, that allow us not only to determine the parameters of the aircraft that we are envisioning, but also visualizing it. And it turns out visualization is powerful. How many times did people tell to you, well, picture this, right? Can you imagine an aeroplane that has 52 square meters in the wing, weighs 4,320 kilograms, has 8 propellers? Well, I cannot. I need a visual. So the tool that emerges is kind of like the Instagram filter of aeroplane design. You look at the upper left, you convey to the software, you don't like propellers. What comes out is like a nice, interesting flying submarines with propellers hidden in the back. I'm not discussing whether this fits the definition of part 23, 25. It doesn't matter. Okay? These are proposed technological solutions to moving people around from those 3,000 airports that are currently not used. And when you throw different inputs to the design methodology, such as go wild with propellers, or I want to have a quiet aeroplane, things start to change. And Unifier questioned people, where do they want to fly? How expensive of a ticket can they afford? What is the length of these airport runways? Where do they exist? Is there mountains next to it? How will noise propagate? All of these things were considered in a 2.5-year project that just concluded. By the way, the website is up and live. Go, please collapse our server and download all the information from it, because you will like it, I promise. This is what we call the winning design. Not because we would be deciding to build it at the next commercial project, but because it answers to what people want to do. To fly zero emission, minimized noise, in a very comfortable aeroplane. This one has a stand-up cabin, by the way. And they want to fly from small airports to large ones, or connect small airports between themselves. This aircraft can do 6 shorter flights, 1 to 200 kilometers each, or cross over from Finland to Portugal in one go. powered by hydrogen and battery-powered applications. You know what's the cool thing about these graphics? All of the building blocks, apart from the human mannequins, do not have a certification basis. They were never done before. They are considered innovation. From the way the seats are, from the way the batteries are, there's a tank, there's fuel cells, cooling systems, and there's only one pilot in the front. Oh, it's the sum of all fears. But it's the machine Europe needs. This is what it would look like when rendered a bit more carefully, but it's literally your flying minibus, right? I hope you find it cool. And we can start assembling the picture of how we get there, perhaps a decade from now, through clean aviation, through CESAR, and through talking about it. I hope your coffee break is spoiled by this. You don't speak about how good the chocolate croissants are, but to speak about the number of the propellers here and the blades on them. So what's next? Pipistrel is also busy with eVTOL world, and we are doing it a little bit differently from many others. So maybe you've seen the trend, right? We went from 2-seaters to 4-seaters to 1 pilot. This one has no pilot. Is this an innovation? Yes. It turns out that in the general aviation segment, most accidents are attributed to some element of the human factor. Pilots need help. They don't need more reliable engines or better structure or more safety factors everywhere. They need help, seriously. So onboarding technology not only to propulsion and materials, but to the smartness of the aeroplane matters. Before I dive into the Nuva V300 concept, let's look at what this journey actually has represented. From 2007 to a type-certified electric 2-seater in 2020, to considering a mini-liner in 2030s, and much before having these large flying drones delivering your Amazon packages, maybe. Things you want to have overnight, quickly, now, immediately, in patience. It's the digitalization of the aircraft industry, not just the vehicle itself. It started with batteries, it started with propulsion. All new design tools have to be created. The way we design aircraft is not anymore by mock-ups, scale models, it's all digital. It's powered by software. I'd like something to sink in now. Apollo 11. 1 year after the first European type certificate was awarded, 1969, contained 8 kilobytes of computer code written by a single woman. And they went to the moon and came back. F-22, and this is declassified apparently, contains about 300 megabytes of software. And we can all imagine what it does or doesn't do, because much of that is classified too. I checked this morning, TikTok. You know TikTok? The applications kids use, the app on the phone. 310 megabytes. It gets updated every 2 days. And whoever claims that a malfunction or a failure of this app is not catastrophic has not seen a teenager in a mental breakdown when this thing stops working. So we have to do something to be more effective and quicker in bringing digital aviation out to the market. Nuva is completely digital. It's the equivalent of your flying delivery van. It has 8 electric motors for the takeoff and landing. They are the same as what we already had certified with the Velis Electro, and it has a pusher engine to propel the vehicle forward. It is designed to take approximately 300 kilograms of cargo a few hundred kilometers far to where people need it. We are using CESAR and EASA to pave the way for these operations. They will not happen in urban centers, they will happen in the more remote corners of Europe, but boy, is there interest. We want to work with the regulator as well as the policymaker to enable this. The rendering is not a joke. This is not your pizza delivery drone. This is a serious flying machine with a triple redundant flight control system, type certified components, and the power of team engagement between the industry, the operators, the authorities, and the policymakers. So the Holy Trinity, the OEM, the authority, and the user is now being expanded to policy as well. Because guess what? It was never done before. But we want to be the first to do it. We are not afraid, and we believe that a repetition of what was done for the Velis Electro, working hand in hand, and taking it to the next level, can enable all of us to use and deliver such products to the market, successfully integrated to the airspaces within this decade. So now I think we can all go back and compare whether we are actually ending up where we wanted to go. We've heard about Part 21 Light, self-declaration, declared organizations. Dude, this was done in 1910 in a bar, and it worked. So history sometimes comes back. We just need to be responsible around it. The industry is stepping together unlike any time before, developing standards so that our users will benefit from interoperability, will benefit from agreed ways of how these vehicles and systems are being used and developed. Our experience is that early coordination between the named parties, the agencies, the policymakers, is the key to bring innovation to the market. If you want to go quick, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. It's much like a marathon race, a cyclist race, or anything like that. Team effort matters. And of course, the holy grail would be to have a single worldwide certification enablement. Still a ways to go, but Part 25 is showing it can be possible. Let's revisit the 1927 type certification process. This is what it looks like in the eyes of an innovator. You figure something out, you prototype it, you ask or you fire an application for your TC, you work hard a long time, you obtain your type certificate, and you go to the market. We heard it today with the SMS discussion. What's the best step when you try to do something new? Did you listen? Take and make your gap analysis. Well, here's your gap analysis. It turns out that there's a very key part of going from an idea and entering in the market that is not supported by the type certification process as we know today. It's just not. Where will you learn enough? Where will you prove to yourself that your claims and assumptions were in fact correct? Where will you have your incremental and spiral development, the refinement of your product, so that when you certify, you have a predictable journey to the market? My perspective is that the industry, the innovators, would truly benefit from an intermediate stage, not alone, but together, that would actually contain a pre-deployment of the product into its relevant environment. We had the luxury of doing so with the Alpha Electro, unfortunately not in Europe. We wish to do it here. Alain's contribution is the innovation and regulatory sandbox terminology. The part before the AKA is how I call it. I strongly believe we can boost not only innovation, but safety in particular, if we release the product early to actual customers in a controlled way. I hope you are not shocked by this. I hope there's someone out in the room that is able to take a parallel to a very safety-critical effort, which already today uses this exact principle. It's the pharmaceutical segment. We've gone through this during the COVID-19 times. They call innovation discovery. They call prototype a lab development stage. They call product pre-deployment your clinical studies, and their TC is called an approval, and then we all get vaccines quickly and in an organized way. I think aviation can and should learn to leverage other industries and undertakings where it makes sense. And this one makes a hell of a lot of sense because it helps everyone when it's done together. Future trends. The upper, smaller text is the same as before. I would dare to add that the processes to certify innovation must be taken differently from something that was done before, something that's similar to the already gathered experience. And this is an attempt. I think we are showing seeds of these beliefs, this mantra, with Part 21 Light, with the level of involvement mechanisms, with the declared training organizations that EASA has fielded or is fielding. Now it's time to embark on the next step and be bold and make tomorrow better than yesterday was. As a takeaway, I think we should not neglect three key non-negotiables. They are linked to how you can certify absolutely anything. It only takes an incredible team, it takes sufficient time, and it takes more money than you ever believed. So how do we go about that? Number one, we have to innovate and field by improving maturity. And maturity will only be improved by demonstrations. There's nothing more powerful than demonstrations. You've seen our WhatsApps, Alpha Electros, Mahepa, Nuva, and Miniliners. These are demonstrations first so that they can be refined into products. Second point really tackles the cost of certification. Not only the cost of technical development, but the cost of getting into the market. Because costs incurred here will be transferred to the cost of the asset, to the cost of the product, inevitably. This is what makes business sustainable. Low cost is an enablement of interest. If you are not at your proper price point, your market has shrunk and maybe become too small. So how you get to your result, not only technically, but by process, matters. And the third element is education. You have your grandest idea in your hand. Even your family members are not as intimate with this idea. Imagine then a person who sits in an office in Cologne receives a phone call, hey, would you certify my grandest idea ever? They don't know. They need to be educated. But not only the regulator, it's the future users. It's the engineers of the future. The engineers of the future who will help co-create our environmentally friendly, clean and digital aviation are now in primary schools, maybe in high schools. We owe it to them to innovate every day between now and when aviation is even much cooler than we know it today. It's the best time to do it. Today is your absolute best day in your entire life to make it better than yesterday. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Tine. Thank you, Alain. Very interesting.
Maybe one comment, Colin. Maybe one comment on before the Slido. Just one comment here. To better understand why we have developed this pre-application service. Now that you have seen this refreshing presentation, very disruptive, you see why we, the regulator, we have developed, and it is the very first modest step toward it, but why did we develop this pre-application approach, innovation partnership contract? And partnership is important. I think you use the word here, we have to work together. And this is the proof, that was the demonstration. In my very theoretical couple of slides before, you had this pre-application service. Well, what's that? It's nice. EASA wants to step forward. But here, you see the need for us, when I say us, industry and us, to work together to address those challenges together. And together we can make it happen. It's a mindset, and the partnership is really important to us. And that's what you had in your slide on this pharmaceutical versus aviation comparison. We are missing this intermediate, this in-between step. Still, what we have developed with the pre-application work, innovation partnership, is before. But we bring us together closer to the application for certification, but not to the validation operational of the concept. And that's exactly the missing step we are having here, to have this kind of sandboxes, regulatory sandboxes. As you said, it has been done in some other environment. We are working on it in the EU landscape. It's a bit more complicated than in other areas of the world because we have various legal constraints. But this objective to experiment in a controlled environment the real product you want to put on the market, for us, is really a goal. It's an objective. How to make it, I have to be honest, today we do not have the answer. But the real issue here is to accompany and to develop the knowledge, as you said, to get trained and to learn and to develop with you the competence from the beginning, from the concept, until the time we say, okay, any user can go. And really, your few slides here, we spoke in clean aviation already about the demonstrator, how to get the customer. But really, we appreciate and we are looking forward to continue working in clean aviation or in other program with you. Sorry, Colin.
Perfect. Thank you, Alain. Okay, now if we go to the questions. So actually the first one at the top is just, as they put it, an applause. So such an inspiring presentation. Well done. I think that's aimed at you, Tine. Thank you very much. So if we go on to the questions below, the first one, having the funding is a precondition, but how will you anticipate the availability of competent resources to support new challenges? And I think that's aimed at EASA, Alain.
Well, yes, I think it's a common challenge. I think it is really hard to develop a common understanding first of a question together and how to develop the knowledge to build competence. And as you said, the earlier the better. If you want to go far, we have to go together. And here the idea is to develop in the same pace, at the same speed at industry, and benefiting from each other, this knowledge which will allow us to improve our regulatory framework, to be more agile, and you to make sure that when you work with us, you will satisfy your market objective and our safety regulatory objective as well.
Yeah, and I think just as I can give an example on hydrogen, for example, right, where we may be quite some way from having a certified product. We are busy trying to develop competency. There is a lot coming. We are participating through training. We are trying to hire people with some knowledge in this domain. We are involving in these pre-application contracts with the stakeholders, which is also a learning exercise, and we're also trying to involve ourselves in areas such as clean aviation, where we can also gain. So we fully recognize that we have quite a lot to do, and we have to start early with these new challenges. Okay, so for the next question, for industry-funded research and innovation projects, what is EASA's expectation regarding IP of any EASA deliverables? Reports, special conditions, means of compliance. Is it company IP, public domain?
That's a very important question, and thanks for asking it, because we accounted for this IP constraint at two levels. First, in the private, if I may say, partnership, where we work with industry on developing solutions, de-risking, feasibility assessment, and this is really one-to-one relation. So here we do not disclose anything. It is a pure exploratory work with a given manufacturer. Now, what we want to do to have certainty, in fact, is to go one step further. And what we will do with the consent of the company is we will anonymize, if I may say, we will extract the generic element in terms of concept, in terms of technology, still at high level, and that's what will be consulted. So there will be nothing product specific and flat control of a given configuration, no. It will be the concept of multiple, for instance, multiple fuel cell with removable ports on a given fixed wing with this size. So we do not designate any product. We will say in this kind of configuration, we have defined this kind of technical policy, which is what we call in our jargon a special condition of generic nature. And as we do for any new certification program, we consult it into this kind of filtered, streamlined, shrinked way. So IP is, of course, on top of our list. We cannot disclose anything without industry consent for sure. And we are bound by very stringent EU laws, so our staff and all of us have to abide by them.
Thank you, Alan. The next question, objective-based certification requirements. How does field experience compare with initial intent, e.g. since CS23 Amendment 5 was introduced, lessons learned? Are you able to comment on that, Alan?
But maybe Timo first, no?
The tricky part with objective-based certification is that the applicant actually has to invest more time in proposing an MOC or proposing a pathway. So what I see discussing with the industry colleagues is that there's some which embrace the opportunity, and there's others which would prefer to have more clarity in something that was just written down before and go down that way. So you will always have a mix. I think what needs to happen now, and it's about 5 years into the activation of, let's call it the new CS23, is to have a look what actually worked and what didn't. Because just like when you innovate technologically, there will be some wrong assumptions. And perhaps certain elements that are brought by, let's say, this more open field, are just not appropriate. And I've been hearing interesting things about oxygen and pressurization challenges at certain altitudes, and there's for sure elements that demand a feedback loop. So the more we get engaged, the better we will get it right. This is only the first wave. 5 years in, don't underestimate what can happen in a decade.
And from a regulator perspective, I would say we are faced with two categories of stakeholders. Some are really looking for the most performance objective risk-based requirements, so very high level. And then exactly your concern here, the means of compliance, how to interpret this requirement, the discussion may take very long. And we have another category of stakeholders where they like to have prescriptive, sorry to use this word, to have very prescriptive requirements. And we have to find a compromise in between. If we are too prescriptive, we kill innovation. That's the problem. So we cannot afford. This is over. So we have, and we've already it in our regulatory system, we have to be performance risk-based. And now we have to adjust our effort and expectation at the next level, as you said, Tine, at the mock level. And that's where the risk lies. It looks nice. We have CS23 Amendment 5, performance-based fully. Now comes a disruptive product. How to interpret for this product this particular requirement, which is, I think I could say, easy to understand, but very difficult to implement into a way which will satisfy the regulator and the society.
Okay. Thanks, Alan. The next bullet is again compliments, and I think the number of thumbs up against it shows how well appreciated the presentation is. So thank you again. The question below, so novelty projects that need FAA, and other worldwide authorities' involvement require filed TC process at EASA before taking them. How will we address this? So I think the question is, how can we engage with a European applicant? They can engage us in a pre-application. How can they ensure involvement of the validating authority early in the process?
That's a very difficult question, and we are working on it. What we've developed with our pre-application system is very similar to what the FAA has with what they call the pre-application engagement system. And our objectives are fairly similar to be ready, or more ready, let's say, for certification. So the challenge is for the manufacturer to engage with the validating authority at the right moment, to make sure that, as you said, Tina, if you want to go far, we have to be together, to make sure that what will be developed in one regulatory system is compatible with the other one. And what we have with the FAA, the famous Center for Emerging Concepts and Innovation, is our counterpart here in Europe for innovation. And what we try to do here is to prepare the future, again, as you said, to develop the next mean of compliance, to develop the next policies in a compatible way. And industry is really here driving the change. Without industry, we cannot succeed.
Thank you, Alain. The next question, ASTM standards are revised more often than the CS amendments. How does the EASA strategy to bridge this gap?
ASTM. Well, at the moment, involvement in ASTM is, Rodrigo might be still there, by the way.
Yeah, Rodrigo, we can...
you want to answer, Rodrigo?
Rodrigo?
If not, I can do it for you, but you are the master of ceremony for ASTM.
Thank you. Yes, I can always try. So maybe this is an opportunity to tell you that we are an update of CS23 ready to be published, exactly to do what is being mentioned, to embed ASTM standards being updated. We do have the tool in our regulatory system to do this. We call them sometimes regular updates, meaning we have systematic updates of the certification specifications in our program that we activate based on many factors. And one of the things we keep an eye on is when related standards are available, in addition to also our own resources and other topics that we need to take into consideration. So that's the strategy. Using that tool wisely, we take the point that, of course, standards development happen quickly. ASTM is not the only body we're working with. But basically the answer I will give is that we do have a tool in our system and we will continue to use it.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Yes, the next one is again an appreciation. Yes, very well appreciated. And then next question, how do you see the recent banning of short-haul flights between cities in France, how this could challenge new electrical aircraft design, Tine?
Having read the document in my vague knowledge of French, I think I saw an exemption for zero-emission aircraft in there, but nonetheless, I think it's just one more indicator that things have to change and change fast. I think electrified aviation, to the extent technologically feasible, is now inevitable. 5 years from now, it was a wild card, it was cool, now it's become inevitable. And to me, the rewarding part, also in such, you could call it critical decisions by governments, policymakers at large, is that it's not only the aviation enthusiasts pushing innovation to the market, there's also a very clear pull from the market, which is fantastic for the companies as it's a direct indication of the market, of the customer base, and the feedback loop can close. So I like it.
Okay, thank you. what is the legal mechanism to formally request an EASA involvement in a clean aviation or CESAR 3 project, Alan?
That's a good question. Thank you for it. In fact, this is all to be negotiated with the GEU, with the joint undertaking. There are consortium which have been winning some calls. Those consortium have programs, projects to which, by definition, the GEU wants the agency to be involved and support. So, in fact, I revert the question to industry. It is for industry having applied through the bids for either clean aviation or CESAR to ensure that in their submittal, in your submittal, there is a role planned for EASA, anticipated for EASA. Example, if I may use your example, Tina, from the very beginning, in your submission to clean aviation, you had identified in your submission a role for EASA. And this was going through the complete GEU mechanism, through the bid evaluation, and for the grant, we have been assigned a specific role. And it is valid for all clean aviation and CESAR 3 project. We are more advanced on clean aviation, so we have today, it's a matter of day because the grants are in the next days, we have today the full visibility, both at the Commission level, at the GEU level, industry level, and us, on what do we as will do over the next 4 years in the clean aviation course, whatever and wherever there. And that was very welcome because, again, I insist, if we want to go far, we have to go together. And here, clean aviation, EASA involvement, this has to go through your respective consortium focal points working closely with the GEU. And for CESAR, the same. CESAR, you have time. Clean aviation, it's over. But for CESAR 3, you still have a bit of time.
Thank you, Alan. The next question. Assuming an innovative project with uncertainties, what are the recommended milestones at which to apply for DOA and TC? So on this one, I can say we have drafted a cert memo that is currently under consultation on the website, which is exactly aimed at addressing this point and at which point and how mature you should be and the various different steps. So rather than try and spell it out here, I would recommend that you go to the EASA website, look for the cert memos under comment, and feel free to go through that and send any comments you have to that. I don't know, anything else to add on your side, Alain, or Tina, anything on from your experiences on?
I think the NPA document is a good document. Okay. Experience comes from bad judgment. Yep. Mm-hmm. This document also. So there's no perfect answer, but I would tend to say one needs to be responsible enough to the limited workforce of the regulator here, or the authority, that you should first do your homework and de-risk your approach to the product. Is it realistic? Is it real? And then approach, right? So the gap in the charts I showed is definitely there before one should seriously contemplate a TC process to be kicked off. Our experience is that there is time to set up a design organization framework as well as other organizational topics. So I wouldn't stress myself too much with this type of a question before your design and go-to-market strategy is healthy.
And if I may complement from the regulator standpoint, our pre-application system, by definition, from the name, is before the application. So we focus on the concept, on the technology, on the disruptive aspect, on the concept of operation, and the DOA will come just after. Doesn't mean we forget good DOA, not at all. But the first priority, as you said, is to de-risk, to do the feasibility assessment of the technology, the concept of operation, to make sure that there is a certain level of certainty here. And as soon as we have certainty, indeed, the organization has to step in. But before, if we start running too early on this front, it may be counterproductive, so I would support here. But when you apply for certification, for sure, from a technology, from a CONOPS, and from a design organization perspective, things have to be well in hand.
Okay, thanks, Alan. The top question there has been answered. Will the regulatory requirements developed for certain components be developed into ETSO, thus potentially making it easier for all innovators?
I think you have all possibilities. This is one of the possibilities. If you look at a few slides you saw before, we can all agree that today our technical specification from the aircraft to the equipment needs a bit of adjustment to be politically correct. So there will be some new development of TSO. There will be probably an increased use of industry standards because we will need a lot of new industry standards as means of compliance. So, and this will be a full constellation to address the requirement, which, I repeat, should be more and more performance-based. If you take a simple example on engine failure requirements on fixed-wing aircraft, today we speak about one engine, two engines, and we have climb requirements. We have, what does it mean when you have so many engines? When it is distributed, you can reconfigure and so forth. So we will need to, we have started already to think about it, to reconsider the complete regulatory landscape from the standards to the requirements. And when I say requirements on purpose. That means implementing rule, not only design, but also ops, FCL, licensing, ATM, where, contrary to product certification, we have to work directly at the level of hard laws. So that's a bit more complicated, but we should not forget the complete ecosystem, from the design to the operation. Again, more and more, we are operationally driven. And this is what we have to accept altogether. ETSO, is only one small element of the complete picture. But for sure, this will come.
Okay, thanks, Alain. Top question there. To make flying from to anywhere accessible, it must be affordable. Are there estimates of the costs for an electric hybrid aircraft of a size similar to a PC-12?
I'd really welcome everybody to the Unifier 19 website. We had a cost calculator there as well, bringing in different assumptions for fuel cost, availability, so you can play with yourself. The possibility is definitely there to have also a 30% cost saving, but certain things have to come together. What I'd like to also remind is that the business model of such flights will inevitably change. So today, essentially the passenger of a small airplane will have to bear the complete cost of the flight, pretty much. If you take a look at what airports are doing today, like 1/3 of their revenue comes from the actual landing fees and handling fees, 1/3 is duty-free, and 1/3 is getting to and from the airport. So to me, the question is, what's the equivalent on a duty-free revenue stream for such sub-regional flights? And as soon as you have people that will inevitably show up, this poses opportunities. It's advertising, it's complementary solutions, so there will for sure be offsetting possible for the actual flight hour cost of such vehicle. We are not anymore talking about charters or on-demand flights, but something that exposes the particular flying machine to a predictable crowd size. And you know how you are being bombarded with advertisements everywhere. So maybe the flight hour is free for someone who signs up for infinite advertisements during the flight. I don't know. Let's see. But innovation is not only in form of making the asset itself perform better.
Okay.
It's together.
Thank you. And then we're coming to an end of this session, so we take one more question. Okay, there at the end. What are the differences between the EASA PAC and the FAA pre-application engagement? How does EASA ensure coordination with FAA CESI? You touched on this earlier, Alain.
Yeah, well, so quickly, in fact, it is very similar. The pre-application contract and the pre-application engagement, the objective is almost one-to-one identical. The difference we have with the FAA, with the IPC, which is the step before. In the IPC, we are not issuing special condition or generic mean of compliance. So pre-issue paper G1 or A1 for us, we are issuing feasibility study reports on a concept or a new technology. So the PAC and the pre-application engagement are almost one-to-one comparable. internal processes, legal processes are different, but the objective is, when you apply for certification, to have a fairly good idea on what your cert basis will be, to keep a long story short. That was the first part of the question. The second part of the question, coordination. Alors, that's a very good question. Innovation is a bit upfront of the bilateral and the TIP and what we discussed in the COB CMT. So here it is work under construction. We have good relation with the FAA, CC. We maintain good contact with them at the high level, let's say. Now, any coordination, and here I insist, has to go through the demand of industry. Because here we have to follow the primary versus validating authority work sharing. I cannot force any of you to go to the FAA-SAC and to talk with them, or vice versa. I cannot ask the US to come to us. So here the key player is the manufacturer. If we have a new manufacturer coming to us for a pre-application engagement, pre-application contract, willing to go to the FAA, we are ready to support you when you go to the FAA. And vice versa. I have good contact with quite a number of US manufacturers, having engaged with the FAA in pre-application engagement, willing to work with us. This will offer us the possibility, the opportunity to tighten the links with the FAA-SAC. So it's work under construction, and in terms of efficiency gain, what we are looking for, together with the SAC, is to facilitate, in fact, the implementation of the TIP. If we are good at the pre-de-risking feasibility study phase together, normally the certification validation effort should be easier. So we want to make our life, your life, easier when you will go through the cert-val process in X years from today. That's why working with CC or working with any other bilateral partner when you have a market foreseen is very important. But here we depend on you, totally.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Afraid that's the end of the session, so we need to finish it there. We now have a lunch break until 2 o'clock, and the session after lunch is working with the EASA, where we'll have a number of presentations from industry. So I'd like to thank once again the speakers for such a good presentation, and I hope you enjoy your lunch. Thank you.